Well, the first thing I want to do is disabuse Bob Priddy of the notion that I suggested this dinner because he has been soft on me. I want everyone to understand that I didn't suggest this dinner because Bob and I are friends. I don't know Bob's family. I don't know Bob's personal habits. I don't know what Bob likes to do on his time off, other than I understand he's a history buff because of his profile as it relates to history. And the reason I don't know all that is because he's a journalist. And I'm a politician. And if you're a journalist, then you don't make friends with politicians. You keep your distance because you have to be objective and you have to be willing to ask the question that you know is going to irritate them. Now, just so everyone understands, I, on behalf of the hundreds and hundreds of politicians that Bob Priddy has covered in Jefferson City, let me just say that while he may think we have been irritating, I can assure you, Bob Priddy, we all believe you have been irritating. As a young state representative, a very young state representative, in 1983, I went to Jefferson City, and I already recognized Bob Priddy's voice because I had been there as an intern in the mid-70s when Bob Priddy was beginning to do his constant and inescapable coverage of everything that was happening in the Capitol in Jefferson City. I was afraid of Bob Priddy as a young legislator. I would go the other direction when I would see him walking down the hall on the slim chance that he would be interested in talking to me. I was a freshman state representative. Now, I look back on that and realize how silly I was, because there's no way Bob Priddy wanted to talk to me as a freshman state representative. He had bigger fish to fry at that point. But I do remember, with a great deal of clarity, at the end of my second full session, when I had an evening on the last night of the session where there was important legislation that I was intimately involved with, that I was working on both ends of the hall until the bell rang. And it was hard. I was dealing with such characters as Harold Caskey and Dick Webster. I was dealing with such characters as Bud Barnes and some irascible folks that were difficult to get to agreement. And I finished, and we got everything done, and I was having one of those moments when, after all the silliness had ensued and the papers had flown, and I was walking off the floor, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Bob Priddy walked up to me with a microphone, and for the first time, he asked me a question, and actually came quasi-close to paying me a compliment. And the reason I remember it so much is because it was almost a compliment, but it wasn't, because he's a journalist, and he could never compliment me. But it was a moment that I realized that I had accomplished things that were meaningful because Bob Priddy wanted to talk to me. That is the kind of journalist he has been for many decades in Jefferson City. The state has no idea the service he has performed, the people that he has challenged, the check he has been on political power run amok in this state. And if you want to know the real way to make Bob Priddy mad, refuse to talk to him. Because then you've got trouble. He will forgive you a cheesy answer that doesn't really answer the question every once in a while. He will forgive you not knowing the answer to his question. What is unforgivable is to freeze out journalists who have a duty and an obligation to report to the people what is actually going on. So I say tonight, we need to salute this man, not because he's my friend and not because he's particularly nice, but rather because of this sentence, which have his two favorite words. That is, a journalist that will go down in history. Thank you, Bob.